one big question for everyone is that what happens when history is told by women who lived through it instead of heroes everyone already knows? So, this documentary explores how these novels imagine the voices of Draupadi and Sita. Make it clear throughout the video that these are literary retellings inspired by the epics, not replacements for the original scriptures. History remember kings. Legends celebrate warriors. But what about the women who watched kingdoms rise, families break, wars begin, and still found the strength to continue? Today, we are exploring two remarkable novels that imagine these timeless stories through the voices of Draupadi and Sita. So, why these books matter? So, most mythology retellings focus on battles. These books focus on emotions, choices, relationships, and inner strength. They invite readers to consider familiar epics from a different literary perspective. So, why women's perspective matters is that for centuries, traditional mythologies have been narrated through a male lens, leaving women as silent figures in stories that shaped entire civilizations. Retellings from women's viewpoint offer a transformative lens, one that deepens our empathy, challenges assumptions, and honors the full complexity of human nature. First, being the female voices have long been marginalized in traditional myths, reducing powerful women to passive symbols rather than active agents in their own stories. Second, by retelling from women's viewpoints, enrich our understanding of mythology, fostering great empathy and revealing untold emotional truths within familiar narratives. Third, being narrative has the power to reshape cultural memory and gender roles, reclaiming women's stories as central to the myths that define our shared heritage. So, coming to know about the author. So, the author of these books is Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni. So, she is an award winning Indian American poet, novelist, and educator born in Kolkata, India. She has lived in United States for decades and is a professor of creative writing at University of Houston. Divakaruni is celebrated for her ability to reimagine ancient mythological stories through the eyes of female protagonists, giving voice to women who were often sidelined in traditional retellings. Her works blend lyrical prose with deep cultural insight, bridging the ancient and the contemporary. And this brings us to our first book, The Palace of Illusions. So, who is the narrator? In the book, the narrator is Draupadi. So, instead of watching the Mahabharata unfold from outside, you experience it through her thoughts. So, in this book, mainly the lessons we learn are about the strength, pride, love, duty, identity, and the best part of the book is the character depth, the emotional storytelling, and beautiful language. So, for this, I would like to give a 5 out of 5 for this book. So, this Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni's acclaimed novel reimagines the Mahabharata entirely through the eyes of Draupadi, the fiery, complex queen at the heart of one of history's greatest epics. Rather than a background figure, Draupadi becomes the narrator of her own story, reclaiming her voice from centuries of silence. Set against the sweeping grandeur of ancient India, the novel follows Draupadi from her miraculous birth, from sacred fire to the devastating Kurukshetra war. Devakaruni's lyrical prose brings intimacy and depth to a world of gods, warriors, and divine destiny. So, and Draupadi holds a singular place in Hindu mythology, wife to five Pandavas' brothers, queen of the magnificent palace of illusions, and a woman whose public humiliation ignited the war that reshaped civilization. Yet traditional retellings rarely grant her interiority or agency. So Devakaruni restores that agency through Draupadi's perspective. Readers witness the epic's politics, loyalties, and betrayals as experienced by a woman of fierce, intelligent, and profound emotion, making her one of mythology's most compelling and enduring female figures. So, coming to Draupadi's voice, Draupadi emerges in Divakaruni's retelling not as a passive figure of legend, but as a woman of fierce intelligence and unrelenting will. Her strength is not merely physical or political, it is the strength of a woman who refuses to be silenced, who carries the weight of a kingdom while nurturing her deepest wounds in private. And through her eyes, the Mahabharata becomes a deeply personal story of agency. She chooses, she suffers, she endures, and in doing so, she reclaims her own narrative from the margins of history. Her internal conflicts reveal the cost of living between duty and desire. Draupadi loves, grieves, and rages, emotions rarely granted to her in traditional tellings. Devakaruni gives voice to her longing for Karna, her complicated bond with her five husbands, and her unyielding demand for justice. Sometimes I think that is the only real power women have, the power to endure. Yet Draupadi's story insists on more, the power to speak, to remember, and to define oneself beyond the roles assigned by others. So, coming to the themes in the Palace of Illusions, we have four themes. First being the power and identity. So, Draupadi's journey reveals how power is wielded and contested, and how identity is forged through struggle and self determination. Second, gender and patriarchy. The novel exposes the constraints placed on a woman in a patriarchal society, and Draupadi's defiance um, against those rigid social structures. Third, fate versus free will. Draupadi grapples with prophecy and destiny, questioning whether her choices are truly her own or preordained by cosmic forces. Fourth, being the complexity of love and loyalty. Love, devotion, and loyalty are tested across relationships with the Pandavas, Krishna, and rivals, revealing their contradictions and depths. Then we have character analysis of Draupadi. So Draupadi emerges as one of mythology's most complex and compelling heroines. Divakaruni retelling illuminates her fierce spirit, her emotional depth, and profound relationships that shape her journey, revealing a woman who defines the boundaries set by the world around her. First, the fierce independence and intelligence. Draupadi questions, challenges, and refuses to be silenced. Her sharp mind and bold voice set her apart in a world that demands female submission. Second is the emotional depth and resilience. From betrayal to exile, Draupadi endures with raw courage. Her grief and rage are never suppressed. They fuel her transformation into a woman of extraordinary strength. Third, relationships and transformation. Her bonds with Krishna, the Pandavas, and Duryodhana define her arc. Each relationship tests, shapes, and ultimately reveals the full complexity of her identity. Then we have Draupadi's emotional journey. From childhood innocence to the fierce sovereignty of a queen, Draupadi's arc is one of profound transformation. Her story moves through wonder and joy, through the searing pain of betrayal in the dice hall, through grief and exile in the wilderness. Yet, in each trial, she discovers deeper reserves of strength. Her empowerment is not given, it is forged in fire. Devakaruni redens every emotion with raw intimacy, inviting us to feel the full weight of her journey from vulnerability to unbreakable resolve. Next, see, we have next that every queen carries a different burden. And this brings us to another book, that is our book 2, Forest of Enchantments. So this novel imagines Sita telling her own story. Rather than focusing on the war itself, it explores resilience, compassion, and the emotional cost of duty. The lessons in this book is about the patience, forgiveness, courage, hope, and inner strength. And I would give this book a 5 out of 5, and you will see why. See, a luminous retelling of Ramayana narrated through the eyes of Sita herself. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni reimagines one of India's most beloved epics, inviting readers into Sita's inner world, her thoughts, her doubts, her loves, and her unwavering resolve. Set across the sacred landscapes of ancient India, from royal places to dense, enchanted forests, the novel unfolds with lyrical beauty and emotional depth, drawing us into a world where the divine and human intertwine. Sita emerges not merely as a devoted wife or passive victim, but as a fully realized heroine, a woman of profound courage, spiritual power, and quiet authority. Her voice challenges centuries of silence, reclaiming her story from the margins of the epic. As a mythological symbol, Sita has long represented ideal womanhood in Indian culture. Divakaruni's retelling questions, deepens, and honors that legacy, revealing the woman behind the myth and um, the strength that sustained her through exile, captivity, and loss. Then, coming to Sita's voice in the book, we could see that in Forest of Enchantments, Devakaruni grants Sita a voice long silenced by tradition. Far from the passive, obedient figure of classical retellings, Sita emerges as a woman of profound inner strength, one who chooses love and loyalty not out of submission but out of deep conviction and self awareness. Her narration reveals the anguish of exile, the loneliness of captivity in Lanka, and the quiet dignity with which she endures each trial. She questions, she doubts, she grieves, and in doing so, she becomes fully human. I had thought that love meant giving up the self. Now I understood it differently. Love, true love, required you to be wholly yourself. By Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni, The Forest of Enchantments. So, this was a quote from that book by the author. So, Sita's compassion extends even to those who wrong her. Her resilience is not the absence of pain, but the courage to carry it with grace. Through her eyes, readers witness a mythology reimagined, one where a woman's inner world is as vast and significant as any battlefield. Themes in the Forest of Enchantments is are also for first coming to womanhood and sacrifice. Sita's journey reflects the profound sacrifices demanded of women and the quiet dignity with which she bears them. Second being love and loyalty. Unwavering devotion tested by exile and separation reveals the depth and complexity of love's many forms. Third, being power dynamics in relationships. The novel examines how power operates between men and women, good and mortals, within family and society. Fourth, the spiritual strength and endurance. Sita's inner spiritual resilience sustains her through captivity, exile, and doubt, emerging as her greatest power. And coming to character analysis of Sita, Sita, as reimagined in the Forest of Enchantments, emerges as a woman of extraordinary depth. Far from a passive figure, she embodies devotion, dignity, and a quiet but unshakable strength that grows through every trial she faces. Her journey through exile and captivity becomes a crucible, forging her into a leader and symbol of enduring grace. Divakaruni reveals the inner world of a woman who chooses her own path with courage and conviction. First, Sita's devotion is never blind submission. It is a conscious, dignified choice. She holds herself with grace and moral clarity, refusing to compromise her sense of self even in the most humbling circumstances. Second, beneath her gentle exterior lies a profound and unyielding strength. Sita endures exile, separation, and captivity not with despair but with calm resolve, determining on an inner resilience that inspires those around her. Third, through her trials, Sita transforms from a devoted wife into a symbol of sovereign strength. Her experiences in exile and captivity shape her into a leader who defines her own legacy, ultimately standing alone with unwavering dignity. Now, comparing the both books, what I would say is that Palace of Illusions, uh, Forest of Enchantments. So, the Fire and Grace, I would say. So, there is ambition, compassion. Uh, so, in Draupadi, there is ambition, and Sita, it is compassion. For this Draupadi, it's a Mahabharata tale, and Sita, it is Ramayana. And the biggest lessons would be that leadership isn't always loud, and strength isn't always physical. Sometimes courage looks like kindness, and sometimes wisdom comes from silence. So, if you see, themes and tone of Palace of Illusions explore power struggles, betrayal, and identity. And the Forest of Enchantment centers on endurance, sacrifice, and spiritual strength. Two contrasting yet complementary epics. Coming to Draupadi, the narrative voice. Draupadi's fierce, fiery, passionate voice drives the Mahabharata retelling, bold, defiant, and unapologetically fierce. Her perspective is charged with emotion and burning desire for justice, whereas Sita's voice narrative is that Sita's contemplative, dignified tone offers quiet but profound strength throughout the Ramayana telling or retelling. So, her inner world reveals resilience, compassion, and an unwavering sense of self. And the leadership lessons are first being courage and adversity. So both Draupadi and Sita face immense trials, yet press forward with unwavering determination and inner strength. Second, the strategic intelligence and wisdom, that is, navigating complex power dynamics. Both heroines rely on sharp minds and deep insight to protect themselves and others. Third, compassion and empathy. So, their capacity to understand suffering and extend care, even to adversaries, reveals a profound and enduring humanity. Fourth, standing up for justice. So, both women refuse silence in the face of injustice, challenging patriarchal norms and asserting their rightful dignity. Resilience and compassion. Both Draupadi and Sita embody resilience, yet in strikingly different ways. Draupadi's resilience is fierce and outward, a burning flame that refuses to be extinguished by humiliation or injustice. Sita's is quiet and inward, an enduring stillness that withstands exile, captivity, and abandonment. Compassion, too, takes distinct forms. Draupadi's compassion is born of shared suffering, while Sita's flows from deep spiritual grace. Together, their stories teach us that strength need not be loud and love need not be passive. These lessons reach far beyond mythology into every life that must endure, forgive, and rise again. Coming to the literary style, Devakaruni's narrative voice is intimate and immersive. placing readers directly inside the minds of Draupadi and Sita. Though first person narration, Through first person narration, she reveals the inner worlds of women who were long defined only by their roles in the epics, wives, daughters, queens, and transforms them into fully realized, complex human beings. Another quote from her is that I had always thought of myself as someone special, someone different. But was I? Or was I just another woman caught in great web of fate that the gods weave for their own amusement? Draupadi in The Palace of Illusions. So, blending myth with contemporary sensibility, Divakaruni's prose carries the weight of ancient tradition while speaking with a strikingly modern emotional intelligence. Her language is rich and poetic. Lyrical passages evoke the grandeur of mythological settings while grounding readers in raw personal feeling. This distinctive style invites readers to experience the Mahabharata and Ramayana not as distant legends but as living stories of love, loss, and enduring sense for identity. The result is literature that is both timeless and urgently relevant. And if you ask me who should read these books, I would say that women, okay? Yeah, of course, women. Also, it can be read by mythology lovers, literature students, and book clubs. So, readers who enjoy character driven novels can also read it. So, and if you more insist, so feminist literature enthusiasts, that is readers passionate about women's voices, gender studies, and stories that challenge patriarchal narratives, these novels offer rich empowering perspectives rarely seen in traditional mythology. Second, mythology and epic retelling. Fans, anyone fascinates by the Mahabharata, Ramayana, or world of mythology will find fresh, intimate retellings that breathe new life into beloved ancient stories and beloved heroines. And book clubs and academic readers, ideal for classroom discussion, literary analysis, or group reading. Rich themes of identity, resilience, and cultural memory spark meaningful conversations about storytelling and society. And if you ask the bookshelf scorecard, in storytelling, I would give it as 5 out of 5, because it's rich, immersive narratives and that breathe life into ancient epics with vivid poetic prose and compelling momentum. Second, if you ask the character depth, I would give it 5 out of 5 because Draupadi and Sita are rendered with extraordinary complexity, fierce, tender, and profoundly human throughout. Third, being the emotional impact. It is also 5 out of 5 because readers experience joy, grief, betrayal, and empowerment alongside the heroines in deeply moving ways. Fourth, being the modern relevance. So, I would rate it a 4 out of 5 because the themes of agency, resilience, and justice resonate powerfully with contemporary readers and social discourse. And the key takeaways would be that Devakaruni's retellings of Mahabharata and Ramayana throughout the voices of Draupadi and Sita illuminate the enduring power of women's perspective in mythology. These novels challenge traditional narratives and invite us to see ancient stories anew. By centering female experiences, they reveal timeless truths about resilience, identity, and the human condition that resonate deeply with contemporary readers. First, being the women's voices add vital new dimensions to mythology, enriching our understanding of epic stories and deepening empathy for marginalized perspectives. Second, that the Draupadi and Sita offered contrasting yet complementary insights, one fierce and defiant, and the other contemplative and enduring. together forming a complete portrait of womanhood. Third being themes of power, resilience, and compassion remain timeless, bridging ancient mythology with challenges and aspirations of modern life. And coming to the closing reflection, in telling our stories, we reclaim our own truths. This is by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. So, through the voices of Draupadi and Sita, Divakaruni reminds us that every story retold from a woman's perspective is an act of courage, compassion, and reclamation. May these narratives inspire us to listen more deeply, question inherited silences, and celebrate the enduring strength of women across time and mythology. And this brings us to the ending that these books don't ask you to abandon the original epics, they invite you to revisit them with empathy and curiosity, imagining how different voices might have experienced the same events. If you enjoy the reflective storytelling and strong character perspectives, these novels are well worth reading. And that's it for the video. Please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment to the channel and the video. And thank you. Happy livings and bye.